Chris here with Worldvia, filling in for Joshua Harrell on this Partner Spotlight. Very excited to be doing this today. Today I have a fantastic guest with me, a good friend of mine, Mr. Ryan Grissett. Ryan, how are you today?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Ryan is our Director of Strategic Partnerships with Collettes. Ryan, you're doing fantastic. Good to see you as always. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I've been with Collette for almost 15 years. Started out back in 2000, end of 2009, beginning of 2010 as a BDM in the Carolinas. Did that for about 6-7 years. And then transitioned over to, I became the Regional Director of Sales in the Southeast. Last year, I had the opportunity to join our business development team, which is I was working with partnerships on a higher level like Worldvia, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're big fans of Collette here, and Ryan, if you would, kind of tell our audience a little bit of background about Collette. You know,
Sure.
just for people that are watching that may not have ever heard of Collette or know much about Collette, why don't you tell us about them?
Sure. It's we were our private family-owned tour operator. We're based in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. We've been around since 1918, so we're coming into our 107th year of operation. We're a 4-star operator. We do tours ranging from 5 to 30 days, and they're fully guided. So whether your advisors or your travelers, or when they're selecting a guided tour, they're going to be in the hands of a tour manager the entire time, from start to finish. That tour manager stays at the same hotels, checks them in at hotels, attractions, eats with them at restaurants. That are when meals are included, but it is a fully guided tour, and one of our hallmarks that I always like to touch on, particularly with folks that have not been on a guided tour, is cultural immersion. It's the foundation for our for basically when our product team is designing it all the way up to we have folks that are traveling on it and operations hands it over to the tour manager. When you go to visit, whether it's Asia, Africa, or you're staying domestically, we want folks to be culturally immersed and meet people, try the food, just learn about the different traditions. So it's how we build our tours.
I think that being fully guided is probably a good thing for people that it's their first time traveling.
Yep.
It's their first time maybe going to Europe, first time going overseas in general. And I think that when you tell somebody that this is going to be a fully guided tour, it kind of puts their mind at ease knowing that, okay, if I may not speak the language where I'm going, I may not know the customs, I may not know a lot of things, so I can walk into this hotel, someone's going to take care of this for me, and I can truly enjoy my vacation, not having to worry about how to drive when you're in a certain destination, because we all know that could be a challenge for a lot of people. But that is fantastic, and you know, we do a lot with Collette here, and we're big fans of Collette, and how much you all provide the advisor community, so we're very thankful for that. And a longtime contributor of Wheel of Fortune.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's one of our partnerships from a branding standpoint. We partnered with the Wheel of Fortune probably a couple of decades ago. It's been a fruitful relationship for. We were joking prior that I get called the Wheel of Fortune guy at various travel events. Not me personally, but like anyone from Collette. It's been a good partnership, but it's great for brand recognition.
No, that's great. It's a household name for some people that may not know exactly what you do, and that's why we have you here today to talk about that. So, one thing that I do want to talk about with you today is something that a lot of people think about. It's guaranteed departure dates. Now, a lot of people throw around the word guarantee a lot. They say we can guarantee this, we can guarantee that, but what does Collette mean when they say guaranteed departure dates?
So guaranteed departure dates, I think this is extremely relevant whether you're a travel advisor that is booking your clients or you're a traveler that's getting ready to go on. There's a peace of mind with guaranteed departure dates that they're going whether we have one person or 44.
Okay.
They are fully guaranteed. We will never rescind that guarantee. So if we have a guaranteed date and currently it has 20 people on it and that's all we get, we will not rescind that and try and move people.
Okay.
It's going when it's guaranteed. To the point where our product team and our contracting team who work hand in hand, they just are about to write. We're about 98% done with our 26 getting into 20 or 25 getting into 26 business travel year. We already have, I think, north of 1,500 guaranteed departure dates right now, going through May 31st of 2026. That's
wild.
And where else I think it's beneficial is we're seeing, when I started almost 15 years ago, the booking window for individuals used to be very short, like 6 to 9 months. We're starting to see that get out a little bit further on individual bookings. And if you're a travel advisor that's new to this, the experienced ones are probably shaking their heads. But guaranteed departures are the way to go because you know that's going, even if it's 15 months away from now.
Right.
And a lot of times, I mean, we prefer you to do our transportation package, which includes the air, but we're realists and know that, particularly in Atlanta, there's a lot of people who have Sky Miles. So if they're doing their own air, they can rest assured that that tour is going to go, even if they book it out, no matter when.
Right, and we're going to talk about that air program as well. But you know, I want to hint on the tours, 175 tours to all 7 continents. So when people are going on these tours and these vacations, and they're guaranteed on all these 175 to all 7 continents, that's just another way that, you know, if you are a travel advisor or if you are a client that is going on this trip, you know that, hey, when I send people or when I am going on this trip, I'm not having to worry about a thing. It's not going to get canceled. So if we have a group of 30 and it's only down to 20, it still goes.
It's once it's guaranteed, either from initially, or we have dates that aren't initially guaranteed become guaranteed, we're never going to rescind that. So the peace of mind of that traveler, whether they're going, you know, like we talked about the shorter ones, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, we have a 30-day tour that encompasses Australia, New Zealand. So they know that it's going. I mean, barring an act of God, like a hurricane or something.
Right.
But yes, they know it's going either way.
So do you find that the longer the people book out, and does that make it a little bit better for this guarantee? Does that make it, should they kind of see, well, I know that I want to go on this in 2026, right? So you're already kind of starting to get into the 2026s. Do you think it's better for clients or for advisors to approach their clients on booking farther out, or kind of that medium range?
I tell you, you know, we're starting to see a trend where it is going out further.
Yeah.
Inventory's an issue at times, meaning, you know, there's certain parts of the world. Right now, Croatia is one of those. Sicily is one of those. Japan has become one of those. So if it's a really hot destination, then yes, if you know it's guaranteed, if it's 2 years away, and you want to go on that trip, and that time frame works for you, I'd absolutely book it because you know it's going when it's guaranteed. But the supply of inventory dates can sometimes be an issue in certain spots.
I think it's important that you brought up the hot locations because we know this year Italy is the hottest location. We know Japan is an extremely popular location. So if you are out there and thinking, hey, I want to go to these very, very popular destinations, the Italys, the Japans, the Croatias, like Ryan said, that should be working in your head. Hey, I want to start booking out longer. Collette will guarantee that for you. Those are guaranteed bookings. So for those people too that are like, oh, hey, I have a month. In a month, I've realized that I have some vacation I got to take up. I want to go on a trip. Even if it's domestic, another good thing to know is that that trip is going to be guaranteed. So, Ryan, I think that's a good thing for both clients, both advisors, to know that, you know, when they are booking these, it's guaranteed. So, you know, another win for Collette. Speaking of tours, speaking of trips, there are a lot of different styles to touring out there. A lot of different styles and how people want to go about touring. I know you all have about four different product lines, and I want to talk about that. The first one being Classic. Let's talk about Classic.
Classic is what we were built on as a company. Our Classic tours are going to go to all the main. It goes to all 7 continents. Our Classics. They're 44 passenger maximums. We're not going to go over 44.
Nice.
Those are when I say that. Just to set the right expectation for your advisors, they're going to be on typically 52 to 53 passenger motor coaches. Right. So we're not going to fill all 52, 53
That's
seats.
pretty nice. Yeah. So they're going to have some wiggle room there where
there's some space.
If they need to move, if they need to move seats, that's a good point you bring up.
Yeah, so that's in our probably 4 of our top 5 since I've been here are the same tours, and they're all Classics. And that's almost 15 years. There's an Italy, there's an Ireland, there's an Australia, New Zealand trip, and then there's Canadian Rockies by train.
Very nice.
But what we are seeing is that is a great value. We have long-standing contracts, but our product team also infuses some new product every year. to, whether it's new destination or we're visiting new things or trying different passenger flows out. Classics is what we've been built on. So right now, if you look at kind of our portfolio of offerings, probably about 60% of them are classic.
What do you think is the most popular classic? If you had to right now, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not. Shades of Ireland. It's our 10-day.
Oh, really?
10-day to Ireland. It goes back and forth with Italian Vistas, which is a trip that does Rome, Amalfi Coast, Florence, and Venice. Every year, those are the two heavyweights.
Pretty nice.
But Shades of Ireland has held the title at Colette for about the last 2 to 3 years. It's an amazing trip.
So anybody that's thinking about Ireland out there you go.
It's a great one to do.
That sounds like a pretty fantastic trip, actually. Yeah. Okay, so that's your classic, that's your standard 44, but you have plenty of room in that motor coach, which is really nice to think about. Exploration, let's talk about exploration. What's that all about?
Exploration's our small group tour.
Okay.
Quite frankly, it's the direction that the industry's heading for guided touring. Between 16 to 24 passenger maximums. The unique thing about it, when I started, we had 6 small group itineraries. Now we're pushing about 60.
Oh my gosh.
So you're seeing over the last 15 years where it's evolved. And I just mentioned that Classic is probably 60% of our product portfolio. I have a feeling within the next 4 to 5 years, that 60% is going to be owned by Explorations.
Really?
We're never going to do away with Classic, the 44 passenger, but the Explorations is just the trend. People are willing to pay a little bit more to go in smaller groups.
Why do you think that is?
I just think that it's probably after 2020, people are willing to invest a little bit more in travel.
Okay.
In a smaller group would be my hunch. It had been trending, but not to the extent that it jumped after. In 21, 22, 23, we really are seeing a bump in it.
Is there I want to ask you this, is there a kind of an age group that focuses on different lines? Do certain age groups does it attract different age groups?
I'd say our average traveler, if you're looking at it from a macro 30,000 foot view, is about 63, 64.
Right.
If we break down the numbers, Explorations is probably a tad bit younger, probably high 50s, low 60s.
Okay.
It's a little bit, we also, one thing that I like to mention is we rate our tours on, 1 to 4 on how easy and laid back versus a little bit more strenuous. The small group tours, because we can stay in smaller boutique hotels, we can do different activities with 20 people than we might be able to do with 44. Gives it a little bit quicker pace, a little bit more activity level is up around 3s and 4s. So you're naturally going to see, travel advisors when they're picking the right product or the right destination. A lot of them will, they'll reach out to us and say, hey, what do you think would be best? And that's where I think we're going to talk about BDMs later, but that's where it comes into play.
I think that's very interesting that, kind of that smaller group, it might be people that were friends, a small friends group or a church group or something like that kind of gets together and says, hey, we want to do this trip. We don't want to go with a ton of, I can gather 16 people, right? Yeah. We don't need to go with the 44 large group, and we want to do a little more hiking, maybe things like that. So, very interesting. I like the trend is going towards that.
Well, I'll tell you real quick on just to put a bow on that is we actually see a lot of advisors do come along trips on
that makes
Explorations.
Sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It matches up with the TC.
Yeah.
You're not having to get, you don't need to, if you want to keep it exclusive, it's a lot easier to do that with 22, 24 people than it would be, to your point, 44. So we see a lot of advisors do come along trips.
Sense. Faith-based.
Yeah.
We have faith-based. Let's talk about that.
Faith-based is broken into 2 categories.
Okay.
And that is, we've done faith-based for a couple of decades now. It's broken into Protestants and Catholics.
Interesting.
Reason being is, for those that are Catholic or that have,
myself.
Yes, you were talking about it a little bit earlier. On Catholic pilgrimages, it's typically expected daily mass.
Okay.
So I was raised Presbyterian. Mass was not daily in the Presbyterian church or many other Protestant churches. So when we're doing pilgrimages, those are only going to be Catholic. So if you see pilgrimage in any of our marketing or any of our, that's going to be a Catholic only. It's not, we don't kick anyone off that's not Catholic, but what you're getting into.
It's geared towards
designed for Catholics. So we have Fatima and Lourdes, we have Shrines of Italy. We have the Holy Land, which is on pause right now, but we also have quite a few that are Catholic. And then on the Protestant side, one of the more popular ones is kind of an overlapping one is the Footsteps of Paul.
Very
so it's
nice.
a Greece, both on land and sea in Greece. And,
wow.
that's designed for both Protestants and Catholics. So
I like that.
I'm glad you brought it up, because if you're a travel advisor working with churches, or whether you're a member or not, this is a great opportunity, and you have product lines that are designed if you want to dabble in groups, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later on.
I do think that's interesting, because you have a lot of clients out there, and people that want to travel that are in their church group, and they say, I want to take my church group. I have a small church group. I want to take them over to Europe and see the sites, see things like that. And that's a really easy way to kind of get a small group of people together. And so doing that faith-based is pretty nice. Finally, let's talk about Spotlight. What's that?
Spotlight Tours is a product line that we designed probably in the mid-teens. It's unpack one time. Okay. So we're going to really focus.
That's what I like.
Whether it's domestically or internationally, we have a nice array of both. We have London, we have Paris, we have Nice, which is Spotlight on the French Riviera. We have Washington, D.C., we have New York City domestically. It's really for that traveler. I think they fall into two categories. One really wants to dive into the culture and the area. Maybe it's a first trip for someone into Europe, and they want to do London, but they want to do it in a group setting, and you have the opportunity to see all the sites, but then go out to Stonehenge or dive into some of the museums in and around London. Because I think that's the one thing in guided touring that I really have come to appreciate, particularly in the Spotlight tours, is you can really get to know an area. When you do one of the Spotlight tours, you're unpacking that one time, and then we're hubbing and spoken. Yeah. For the advisors and for the travelers that are listening, that an advisor might put this in front of, where we're really seeing a trend in the last couple of years is we have strategically located some of these spotlights around cruise ports. Yeah. So I just brought up London. Southampton is not far from London, obviously. Yeah. Most travel advisors know that. We designed that Spotlight on London with that in mind, where someone does a transatlantic or they're doing a cruise that begins or ends in London, and basically it's just a cruise. This could be that land component where they can dive in and really get to learn that culture of London, and then it has a couple advantages that would work for them.
I think that's pretty nice, knowing that it's your first time going over to England. Yeah. You said, okay, I want to go. I'm going on a cruise. I'm doing this transatlantic. I'm gonna land in Southampton. But I want to extend my vacation. I want to extend this time, and I want to explore, and not having to wake up, pack up again, move to another hotel. Some people, to them, they don't see that as so much of a vacation. Some people say, I want to relax, but I want to explore, but I want to relax. So having that option of saying, all right, well, we're going to park it here essentially, but I'm going to get all the benefits of going to places like Stonehenge, going to around London. I'm sure Big Ben and all those places, Buckingham
Parliament,
Palace.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's knowing that you can. Another great thing with Colette, obviously, it's guaranteed, and you just have to unpack once, and you get to see all the things. So and it's guided, and for a lot of people, that's a major hurdle for a lot of people to want to go on trips, is knowing, how do I even get there? What do I do when I get there? How do I navigate the city? How do I navigate these hotels? So having Colette bring that option to them is, that's pretty fantastic. So,
and the one point I didn't make, from whether you're a solo traveler or this is your first time with a travel companion, and you're going internationally, or you're experienced traveling with that tour manager is like traveling with a friend. Right. They're going to handle all the logistics. You get to go and worry about having fun, learning whatever the boat, being in a different place and enjoying it. You don't have to worry about all the little things. So peace of mind.
Peace of mind, and for people that like you said, they're solo. They don't know what to do. They know that they're going to have that guide there that's going to handle everything for them. They just have to get there. They just have to enjoy themselves. Absolutely. They can do that with Colette. So peace of mind is great. Guarantees are great, but insurance. So I know insurance is a big thing that a lot of people, it's a big thing that a lot of people don't think about for some weird reason, especially travel insurance. So Colette, the industry-leading insurance and financial stability and integrity. Let's talk about Colette and insurance.
Ours is cancel for any reason up to the day before the tour leaves. And it basically, it's broken into two parts. Part A is that cancel for any reason up to the day before tour. We joke internally that it's a bad hair day policy. So you wake up the day before tour, you don't want to go. We cancel, refund them fully.
Really?
However they paid. So whether it's check, credit card, however they paid, we refund it fully, less the insurance if they're canceling for any reason. But it is truly cancel up to the day before the tour leaves and get all their money back. Then it rolls over into travel insurance once wheels are up that next day, and that's underwritten by a company called Collettes. It's going to be your protection in the event that there's accident, sickness, trip interruptions, travel delays, trip cancellations, lost luggage, theft, medevac. All that's covered under that policy. Couple of things on that. One, doesn't matter how young or old you are, it's the same price. So it's a blanket price. That's so and then they basically, where we see the most claims is typically trip interruption, where something's happened and something's happened at home, something's happened to them on tour. They've got peace of mind that they can leave. They're going to be refunded when they have it, whatever they missed. So it's better to have this and not need it than need it and not have it.
Right,
It's that simple.
And we know that in the travel business, insurance is, like I said, it's one of those things that's talked about a lot, but for some reason, it's never focused on as much as it should be. Is that included automatically?
No, it's basically an option.
Right.
I'd prefer it to be included. My background prior to travel was in financial services, and I've seen it from all aspects. And with our average traveler being 63 to 64, there's people going on their first trip or second or whatever it may be. Domestically, it's one thing, but if you're going internationally, a lot of times their health insurance provider is not covering them outside of the United States.
Right.
And most travel advisors are obviously going to talk to them about this.
Yes.
But it is an extremely important element.
Yeah.
And I could parade hundreds of people through here. I've been doing this long enough, and I could tell you story after story, but it's just one of those things that gives you peace of mind. You're protecting the investment that you made in this experience. So it's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think that having that option obviously is super important. Being able to cancel for any reason is pretty wild, and knowing that hey, if something happens the day before you go on this trip, whether it's an emergency or not, you can say, hey, look, I just can't do it. This is not going to work. And Colette's going to say, okay, that's fine. We understand. Yeah. We'll take care of you.
2 points. One, we track everyone that has to cancel.
Right.
Over 90% of them are not because they just are having a bad hair day.
Right.
90% is something's happened. They want to go on this trip, whether it be to Israel or Italy or Africa or wherever they've planned to go. We track that. The other thing is the benefits of having us self-insure the front end of that cancellation waiver. In the pandemic, we get back over $185 million, including the insurance premiums. If we have to cancel a tour, if we do on our end, regardless of what happens, that they're going to get back every penny, including their insurance. Now, if they cancel for any reason, they're going to get back everything, not a voucher, not a percentage, with the exception of the cost of that insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's super important. And like I said, another thing that people just tend to kind of brush over, but it's not something that they should. Travel insurance is not something that you should just brush over.
No.
So let's say I'm building I'm an advisor. I've got my clients out there. You could be clients out there yourself and have some people that that want to go on a trip. Let's talk about one of the most important things in the travel world. That's groups. Yeah. Groups. That's how we titled this one. So I have a couple of notes here that I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about deposits. Are deposits required?
So great question. Deposits are not required. There's no deposits, no minimums for a travel advisor to hold space with Collette. The only time a deposit comes into play is if one of your clients wants to reserve their seat. Mm-hmm. So where I think this is beneficial, whether you're a brand new advisor or you're one that is experienced but has yet to do groups, or you're experienced and you have done groups, you don't have to put money down to hold space. It's your space until on average about 6 months prior to departure.
Okay.
So where we see, and we'll talk about our BDMs, but our BDMs will sit down with a travel advisor. They're narrowing down where these folks want to go, and then we grab the space for them, and then they have anywhere from, it could be from 6 months all the way up to 18 months, and that's the time they're going to promote it. But that space is yours.
That's nice.
Up until 6 months prior to departure. So an example, if you and I are sitting down and you're like, Ryan, I really want to go to promote this group trip to Italy in October of 2025.
Yeah.
So that's a year and a couple of months away from now. It sounds crazy,
Right?
but it really goes by fast in the travel world.
Yeah, of course.
So that space is yours until April of 2025. So we have between now and April where we can promote it. A BDM will come out and do a presentation. A BDM can do a webinar, but you're not putting any money down to hold that space, and you don't need a minimum. Quite frankly, we invest in our advisor partners to hold that space. And if it doesn't transpire and you don't get somebody, then it is what it is. But if you get a couple of people, then we'll back end fill it through the retail channel later on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that I'm an advisor. I come to you. I say, hey, I have this group of 10 people. Let's block out these spaces.
Yeah.
I get 8.
Yeah.
What happens to the other 2?
Those 2 spaces inside 6 months become first come, first served.
Fantastic.
So those 8 are still going at the advertised price. The other 2 open seats just go back into general sale.
Yeah.
And you might see an advisor put an individual couple on that or an individual person on those. But the key is they're not, I joke that the only obligation or the risk of loss for an advisor in groups is the amount of time that you put into this.
Right.
There's no financial obligation on the front end.
I think that should show advisors that they shouldn't be afraid of the word
No.
groups. They shouldn't be afraid to get out there and find that social group. Maybe it's a woman's group. Maybe it's a church group, like we said. Maybe it's anything that you can think of that that there's a large contingent of people that want to go on this trip that you're planning. What Ryan is telling you here is that, hey, there's really not much worry that you have to think about. It's you block the space out, fill it, and we that's great. If you can't fill it, it's still going. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean it's really, it allows you to experiment, kind of cut your teeth with Collette.
Right.
And I've always urged travel advisors, like, you're going to find your system when it comes to group travel. It might not be that initial trip, it might not be the second trip, but once you get going and you get someone on there, it might not be the right destination initially, it might not be the right time of year.
Right.
That's why you can afford to experiment a little bit with Collette. We'll find the right formula, and it's also, but yeah, to Chris's point. Whether it's you as the travel advisor that's going to go on this trip, or we're partnering with an affinity group, it's basically with guided touring. It's people that are near retirement or already in retirement. So it'd be a 55 plus community. It could be an alumni at a university. It could be a local women's group. It could be anything that has that demographic. And then the other component, that's the other kind of secret part of the formula, is you need a Pied Piper. It's either you as the travel advisor, or we find a Pied Piper inside the organization that can get excited and get those people to that presentation to get them excited to go on that trip.
And let's talk about that, because a lot of people don't really know much about that aspect of the business. And somebody that's new, somebody that's coming into travel for the first time, you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is pretty daunting. I don't really know that many people, or maybe, and I've heard this when I was talking to somebody else, they said, I got a line on a Kiwanis group, I think it was, and they're like, I have a meeting with them, and there's like 20 of them here, so what do I do? Where do I get resources? What do I do? How can Collette help that new advisor that's saying, I finally got a group of 20 people to want to sit down and listen to me? Yeah. How does Collette help with that?
So a couple ways. One, we have north of 40 BDMs just in the U.S. alone. Our business model is to have local representation for you as a travel advisor. So use them as a resource, whether it be, to provide you with content to take into that meeting, quotes, itineraries, pictures, videos on one side. The other thing is, maybe you don't feel comfortable going in there by yourself, either in person, or we can set up a Zoom or a Teams meeting. Same thing, our BDMs are trained to help you close that business. So give them a call, they'll meet you there. I was a BDM and did 1 million of these appointments. I was an RDS and trained BDMs to do it, where we're going to go in and help close that business the right way with you, and kind of set it up, particularly for an advisor that may not be experienced in in the industry or in groups. So,
Right.
And then the beauty of it is once you get things rolling, it's ironic because, once things start to snowball a little bit, your best salespeople are those travelers that you're getting on that trip. When John and Jane Smith are excited to go to Italy, and then they're at Thanksgiving and talking to their brother and sister-in-law, and all of a sudden you as the advisor are getting called, they end up being your best sales reps or your people that are going to go on that tour.
And that's a great point you bring up, because you have so many, as an advisor, and the reason why we're harping on this is because groups tend to be one of those things that can really make or break you as an advisor.
Yeah.
You can do a lot with groups, and you shouldn't be afraid to do groups. So what Ryan is telling you here is like, hey, you'll have support from us, you'll have support from the people within your group. Don't be afraid. You don't have to put down, the no deposits, the guarantees. All these things should hint at you as an advisor as to say, okay, look, Colette's got my back.
Yeah.
Colette's going to be the one that's going to help me with this, so I can test it out. I can find this group of 20 people, approach them, get some help from Collette, get some resources, and put on a good show. Yeah. When they put on a good show, and then all of a sudden those 20 people say, yeah, we want to go on this trip. Let's start booking. That's fantastic. And then how many times after they book their first group do they come back and continue to book groups?
We have a north of 60% return rate on the group side. It's fun. Like-minded people like to travel together.
Right.
I mean, it's whether it's all different walks of life. Like-minded people like to travel together. And it's ironic because the one obstacle that I see in group travel is we just talked about we're holding that space until 6 months.
Right.
Up until 6 months, you're promoting that trip, that presentation. Once we get past that 6 months, as hard as it is, and this is what I've coached travel advisors through the years, is all right, after that 6 months, we're probably not going to get anyone else. Now we're moving on. We're already talking about the next trip. Even though those folks haven't gone on that trip to Italy, the next trip to Ireland, we're already talking about, and we're getting ready. And that's where the BDM comes in that's going to help you do that. And that's a learning curve of group travel. So, yeah.
It's cutting your teeth. It's trying it out for the first time and knowing that with Collette you can try it out and you're not going to get burned. You're going to be all right.
Hey, and I'm going to be honest. There's not many mistakes you can make in group travel. Like you have a big support system both here at World Via and then with a Collette. We've seen a lot. I can't say we've seen everything because I see something new all the time. But there's really you're not. Don't be intimidated by doing groups. Like it's you're not going to do anything that could really be a huge mistake that we haven't already seen that we can't plan ahead for.
I love to hear that, and we're going to get into the BDMs and how important that role is. But first, I do want to talk to you about. So let's say I'm an advisor. And I get my groups. I'm working through everything. Let's talk about how I can get them over there in a transportation package.
Okay.
Collette Air. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Yeah. Now we know that air is kind of a hurdle for a lot of people, especially this year. So let's talk about transportation packages with Collette Air.
Yeah, I first want to, in doing this as long as I've done it, I think the common misnomer is people just talk about air.
Yes.
One of the benefits of Collette is we do a true transportation package.
Okay.
So whether it's group or it's individual bookings, it starts, for an individual booking if they live within 50 to 75 miles of the major airports. So we're in Atlanta right now, Hartsfield, Jackson. If you live within 50 of that and you're doing our air, we're picking you up at home in a chauffeur service. Private chauffeur, picking you up, taking you to Hartsfield, and then when you come back, it's included. The other benefit is the transfers in destination.
Right.
Because people will say, oh, how much does the air cost? Well, it's a total package. Think about if you were Ubering to the airport. Yeah. You're going tonight. How much would an Uber cost? At this time,
like
probably
$40.
Yeah. So, and then the Ubers or transportation in destination, and the Uber when you get back, but we didn't even talk about driving there and parking, what that would cost.
Oh,
so it is truly a total transportation. If you're doing our air, you're getting picked up on both ends. On the group side, we do one hometown pickup, and then you're having the transfers in there. Where this can be beneficial for whether it's an individual or group booking is that's where we tend to see when things go awry on a travel. They're in our hands from the time we pick them up at their front door, the hometown pickup spot, until the time we bring them back. So if you have a group or individuals over in Europe or in Africa or in Australia, New Zealand, entirely different time than what we're at, 2 a.m. and there's something that's gone awry, we're handling all that. you're not having to get a call at 2 a.m. and then have to figure out who you're going to call. So I think it's advantageous from both the client, the traveler's side, as well as the advisors. It's all one thing and it's included. And quite frankly, it's very competitive because we're buying it in bulk.
Well, and think about it. Yeah, think about it from a like you just said. You're getting it as a group. Think about it buying individually, right? So like you just said, I have to buy the airfare. I have to get my transportation down to the airport. Now, if I'm going with, say, my wife, we don't have anybody to drive us there. We have to drive ourselves. Whether we take an Uber, that's going to cost $40, $50, $60 depending on the time. We're going to we're going to have to park. Like you said, imagine parking for a week at the airport. That's a couple $100. That's not something to sniff at. So knowing that with your clients, you can kind of focus it more on, say, we're going to include that air package. We're going to include the transportation package. That way you don't have to think about a thing, right? You're just waking up, packing your bags. That car is waiting for you outside your front door, that chauffeured car, putting your bags in there, going down to the airport, boom, you're good. And then when you get to the destination, that's another big hurdle that I think a lot of people don't think about, especially when they're like, I'm going to go to Europe for the first time. They land in, say, London. It's probably very chaotic. They probably have no idea where to go. Or even if they land in France, land in Paris, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't know what part of the airport they have to go to. Knowing that Collette is handling that for you is another peace of mind, another ease that the client, that the advisor just has. Yeah.
It's funny that one of the things that I really enjoy is when I see past travelers. Ones that I've met before and ones that I haven't, and we talk, I went on a Collette trip, and they talk about it, and one of the highlights is that they were picked up at home, and they're raving about being picked up at home.
That's big.
Versus they just did a 13-day tour to Italy, and their highlight was it was a private chauffeur, and it makes me chuckle because it is such a simple thing, but it goes a long way. And use the advisor. You're providing an extra service for them that others cannot. So.
Driving to the airport, having to park, having to deal with that, or driving to a port or something, that's not fun. That is the least fun part about the trip. So if that's one extra piece of mind that you don't have to think of, I mean, that's sending a big message. Yeah. I think that talking about this with your clients, if you're an advisor out there, talking about this with your clients, or if you're somebody thinking about going on these trips, put this in perspective of money, and put this into perspective of time that you're going to spend, time and money that you're going to spend that's going to take away from your trip. If that's one less thing that you have to think about, that's more time that you get to enjoy your vacation, and that's what the whole point of this is all about, right? Yeah.
And it's a value add, I think, for you as an advisor to bring that to your clients. Yeah. I don't care. It doesn't say Collette. We don't send Collette cars. So it's it's a private chauffeur service that we contracted, but it's one extra service that you're providing to your clients, and it makes you look fantastic.
Is there a limit? So if it's the private chauffeur that comes to your door, what's the kind of passenger limit on that?
We'll do it practically.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 couples, they all live in a 55+ neighborhood.
Right.
We're not going to send 3. We work with them. Okay. I mean, we've had people that prefer to be in 3 chauffeured cars, but most people are like, hey, we're traveling with these 2 other couples or these 3 other people. And can you just pick us up at Sally's house? We can do that.
A convenience factor.
Yeah. And one other note, real quick, so I don't forget. The other thing is that whenever travelers, this kind of ties into we were talking about transitions, and we were talking about just the ease of mind for the advisor and these people. We have an emergency line for travelers.
Okay.
And for advisors, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Meaning that wherever your folks are that are traveling, they have that number, and they're going to call in and get a human at Collette. Yeah. And on the flip side, if an advisor needs to track someone down, they can call Collette's emergency line when their clients are traveling for one reason or another. Yeah. But we're handling all that, and it's not something, your cell phone's not going to ring at 4 a.m. They should know to call us first, if that makes sense.
It does. And, anytime we talk to somebody like yourself, that aspect kind of gets, pushed aside about the support system. Yeah. So I know that that's kind of not on our topics, but I want to hint at that about the support system, about the fact that it's 24/7, about the fact that the advisor can just reach out to you guys, that the clients can reach out to you. Is that so? So is that worldwide? So anywhere they're at in the world that they have access, and where's that usually kind of coming out of?
So the majority of let's put a 24-hour clock on. So I think about 16 to 17 hours of that on average are coming out of our Rhode Island office.
Fantastic.
Then it shifts over to we have an office in Vancouver and we have an office in Sydney.
Oh, nice.
So it's 24 hours. Is the only difference you're going to get is an accent, whether it's a New England accent, a Canadian accent, or an Australian accent. I joke tongue in cheek, but no, it's going to roll. You're going to get a human being.
That's important.
Our operations team does an amazing job. I mean, in doing this, I've had a lot of things happen over the years to travelers. I think it's one of our strengths is when things like that happen, our operations team is unbelievable, and it's peace of mind. Like they have that support. The other thing is they'll get those numbers in our doc pack minutes. We're still a little bit old school, and then we send out doc packs if you want them. I mean, we prefer to do them PDF or digitally, but some folks still like to get the little packets, so we'll mail them out to the advisors or the clients, and all of that information is in there. In those document packets with the emergency numbers, all of that's in there.
And can the advisor get that, when they're preparing, so let's talk about that a little bit. When they're preparing some stuff for talking to a group, let's say, can Collette provide them with any sort of documentation or any sort of physical things that they can give out to their potential clients?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have a couple of different programs. Well, the BDMs can provide you with any type of marketing content. Like we have a group travel with Colette, and what we'll do is I have a couple of advisors where I stack. I'll give them I'll send them a box that really love doing group travel, and they'll stamp their call to action on the back. So it's branded Collette, but you can put all the call to action on it. We also have a couple of programs where we can send brochures out for travel advisors, and all the call to action is going to go right back to the travel advisor.
I think that's fantastic. It's just showing that Collette is keeping that connection with the travel advisor. They want to support them as much as they can. They want to provide them with everything that they can just to be successful. I mean, you want them to be successful because it just benefits everybody.
Our business grows with you.
That's right.
It's funny. We constantly have internal conversations of what's working, what could be improved. Right. We have advisory boards. Actually, Joshua is part of our advisory board, but we take that feedback not only from our advisory boards, but also every tour we have a survey that goes out to every traveler. Used to be printed, now it's actually digitally. They get it in an email. But about 2019, we started what's called our customer experience department. It's actually started with one person. Now I think there's 5 or 6. We literally, the only way, it's so funny because I think when I say this at presentations to travelers or to travel advisors, because growth and how do we better our tours, I tell everyone that travels with us, and I tell every travel advisor to tell their clients, be brutally honest on that.
Right.
Because we truly, every aspect of that is now goes into the CX department, customer experience, and we act on it. You know, it's the only way we can better, whether it's the pace of the tours, the hotels we're using, the attractions we're visiting, or the BDMs. Like, if there was interaction with the BDM at a presentation, like it truly is something that Collette's invested in over the last couple of years, and we react on it. And some things take a little longer than I'd like, but we will fix things.
But it's important because I'm sure Collette wants to know how the community is responding. They want to know how the advisors are responding. They want to know how the clients are responding to a lot of things, and so it just can. So when you do see things like what Ryan's talking about, make sure that you do give your feedback to Collette. Make sure that you do let them know. Let your BDM know how the trip went. Let them know what your thoughts are, how the process went. Let them know what your clients' thoughts are. That just benefits everybody because it shows growth. It shows that Collette can grow. It shows that they're willing to make some changes if need be. Yeah. So speaking of which, I want to talk about one of the biggest things that I know about Collette. Is the BDM system. And if you don't know what a BDM is, it's a business development manager. This is somebody that is out there. They're on the road. They're in different states. They are basically the boots on the ground. Would you say,
Front
Ryan?
line.
The front line of the Collette. They're the front facing Collette. You know, I know Ryan's here, and we all love Ryan, but you know, hey, the BDMs are the ones that get it done. No, I'm just joking, Ryan. So let's talk about your dedicated nationwide BDMs. How many BDMs? Not to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine.
How many BDMs do you have?
We have north of, I think we're pushing 45 right now domestically. We
Fantastic.
actually just, one of our goals from a business strategy model is we want our BDMs to be a local resource and an advisor to the travel advisor.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to help find groups, whether it's scheduling consumer destination nights, whether it's helping out, it could be training a travel advisor. I did it for a long time, and I was in the Carolinas, and I used to meet with travel advisors on a daily basis. And I always, it's funny, I had a little trick where I would give them my business card. I would scratch out. They used to make us put our 800 number on it, and I'd scratch out and put my cell phone on it, and I'd say,
a good trick.
Yeah, I'd say, hey, call me, text me. The best piece of advice I could be a travel advisor, and this goes for any BDM in the industry, not just Collettes, is don't make your first call to them an escalation. Build a relationship with your BDMs. They are an amazing resource for you. If you have someone coming in later today to talk about Italy and you have not been there or studied it, pick up the phone and call that BDM and say, hey, I have someone. I would love it if we got 100% of those bookings, but I want to be there to be a resource. So our business model, in the U.S. we have 45. Mm-hmm. I think we just hired our 45th. We have 6 in Canada. We have 6 in Australia.
Oh wow!
So it's grown, but the owner of our company, Dan Sullivan. He's a salesperson as well, and then he started running the company. But we want to be there locally. Our BDMs on average have a state and a half. As a matter, just to put it into perspective, in the Carolinas we have two BDMs. So one in the east, one in the west.
Oh, wow.
One out of Charlotte, one out of Raleigh. In Florida we actually have 4 BDMs.
4 BDMs in Florida.
Well, think about all that. Our demographic is heavy in Florida, but we want them to be a local resource. Yeah. We don't want them to. We don't want them having 5, 6, 7 states. So we want them to be available to do presentations, to do trainings. But I truly would tap into that resource if I'm a travel advisor. Whether you're brand new or you've been doing this for 20 plus years, tap into that. And they can help you find groups. They can help you design destination nights, whatever you want them to do. They're there to be a resource.
How would you describe a destination night? If you have an advisor out there that's watching this and they're like, and this is sparking something inside their head. They're saying, Ryan's got a lot of good points out there. There's a lot of great guarantees. There's a lot of great things that Collette's going to do for me. Holding this group space. How do I get these people together? What does that kind of look like from somebody new that wants to reach out to a BDM?
I think it's, destination nights are one of those where, you don't have that group of 10 people like we talked about earlier to do a trip to Ireland.
Right.
But you're at this 55 plus community. I'll keep that as the same example because like-minded people, everyone's 55 plus.
Right. Very active.
Yeah, very active. They want to go somewhere. A couple of the themes that I've used, you want to have a common denominator. That's key. I tried to bucket list destination nights years ago, and it would go all over the place. So I'm like, no, we're gonna put some guardrails up. Whether it's an Italy night or an Ireland night, or it's I've even used the 3 I's of Europe: Ireland, Iceland, and Italy. Or it could be a small groups night, like we talked about Exploration's product line. Maybe you just do small groups, but that's going to be your hook to get folks to come to that. The other piece of advice on these destination nights is to give yourself a couple of months to promote it.
Sure.
One of the things where we ran into, where I learned early as a BDM, as someone would be like, oh yeah, I guarantee you I can get 30 plus people there. And it's like a month away. That rarely happens. It's maybe happened on like 1 or 2 occasions for me personally. But give yourself time to promote it. That BDM will get you resources. And pick something. Maybe it's an Africa night, or maybe it's an Italy night where you could use that common denominator as something for folks to come in. And I wouldn't. The other piece of advice, a little off topic, but you don't need to do an elaborate 4-course meal at a destination. It's a common misnomer. Throw out some crackers and cheese. They're there to learn about travel.
Right.
And the other trick is, I think, it's funny. I used to use Total Wines in the Carolinas.
We've heard a lot about that.
It doesn't cost you money.
Yeah.
You can tell we used to had this amazing partnership with the Total Wines in and around the Carolinas, where we'd have an Italy night. I'd come in, start off, they do 20 minutes of wine tasting on Italian wines, and then I do 40 minutes on Italy tours, and they'd get like a coupon to buy some wine, and I give them a travel voucher, a travel discount. But you can have a lot of fun with it. Just like I said, don't overdo it. Like, keep the guardrails up. Pick a destination that you know is popular. That BDM's there to help guide you, but those are great ways to build your book of business. Because if you say you're having an Italy night, you're planning it out, all of a sudden, John and James Smith, they're coming to it. They start telling their friends at their various different activities. Now all of a sudden that 10 people jumps up to like 20, 30 people, and you can really get it going.
I mean, even if you're a consumer out there and you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, well, I know 10, 15 people that want to go to Italy, reach out to your travel advisor. Or if you don't have a travel advisor, reach out to one of our travel advisors at World Via and start this process. You have a group that wants to go out to Europe, that wants to go to Italy for the first time. You say, okay, my church group wants to go, my women's group wants to go to Italy. Colette is your options here. There's a lot of fantastic stuff.
Absolutely.
Developing the relationships with BDMs, I think, is another thing for the advisor group that sometimes they get, bogged down in working with all these different clients, all these different brands, everything like that. They lose sight of who to reach out to, who to help. But I think the main point that I like what Ryan's talking about here is that the BDMs at Collette, they're not too spread out. So they're not too bogged down with a million different states. They're not in 7 different states. I mean, you have 4 in Florida. There's probably one that focuses just on South Florida. Yeah. So this BDM can have your attention as an advisor. They can have your attention. They can work with you. They can spend time with you, and they want to, right? To go a little bit off topic, what's something from your time as a BDM? What was something difficult from your time as a BDM that you saw out there?
From an advisor standpoint?
Yeah, what was the situation that you were in that kind of threw you a little off?
I think it's setting expectations.
Yeah.
In the travel industry, I'm passionate about setting the right expectations. And I think, you were just talking about BDMs. And in order to set the right expectation, you guys, as a travel advisor, have unlimited resources to do that. And I understand you get hit with a million different things at a million different times. The email, text, pick up that phone and call. It doesn't have to be a BDM. It could be just someone at the company. Just make sure you're setting the right expectation. Because we were talking about repeat business earlier. If the right expectation's set, you've got a client that's going to come back to you for one or multiple vacations moving forward. And to me, the advisors that I've seen in the last 15 years that set that right expectations are the ones that things get a lot easier for them because they're doing it the right way. But there is a common denominator in that they've built their network of BDMs and people that they know in the industry so that they can lean on them if they haven't been there, or it's a new ship, or it's a new tour. Reach out and set that expectation early. That's where I found it most challenging. And the advisors that overcome that and do it the right way are the ones that you see are excelling in the industry.
Yeah. So take what Ryan is saying and use the BDMs to your advantage. Learn from them. Don't just kind of you can experiment with Collette, which is beautiful. You can say hey, I want to try this group thing, or I want to try a new destination for my clients that I've been working with for 20 years. And that's another thing people forget is that some of these travel advisors have clients that they've been working with for a couple decades now, and maybe they've never talked to this client about going to Italy, about going to France, about going to England, about going to Australia. Yeah. And, they've gone on enough cruises. They want to try something different. This is something that they can do. And so kind of tap into that market, tap into that BDM market, tap into that help that Collette's offering you, all those guarantees, all those group booking guarantees. I mean, you really have nothing to lose, right, Ryan?
You don't. You can take advantage of it.
What's a good, when you were a BDM, what was the best kind of destination night thing that you remember? What was something that you
Yeah.
walked away with that was like, wow, this really worked out great?
Italy is typically a good one because whether you're doing, we talked about Total Wine.
Yeah.
It's really easy to go get a couple bottles of Italian wine or, at the local grocery store. I don't even think you need to do that, quite frankly. But Italy is one of those destinations that whether you're newlyweds or you're in your 80s, and I think you can do Italy multiple different ways. I mean, the cookie cutter is Rome, Florence, and Venice. And then there's so many add-ons, whether it's the Italian Riviera or the Amalfi Coast. One of the hottest destinations we've had over the last couple of years has been Sicily. And I consider that, off the toe of the boots, so to say. But those Italy nights, because you're talking about pasta, you're talking about wine, you're talking about limoncello.
So easy, right?
Gelato. It is really easy. And those pictures and the video content from Italy sells it for you. So I think my advice, if you're going to do a destination night, Italy is one of those places where I do it.
You heard it from Ryan. I mean, that's. I mean, he knows he's had the experience, so that's And the reason why I asked you something like that is because you have people watching this, whether they're clients, whether they're advisors, that don't know. They've only done one style of travel their whole career, maybe. Yeah. They want to try something different, and this is where you can try it different. You can try it different with Collette. Now as we're kind of getting to our last 5 minutes here, Ryan, I kind of want to go back to kind of some of the points that we talked about in the beginning. Remember the 4 types of travel that you guys offer. So as an advisor, make sure that you kind of research that. Make sure you look into Collette. You find what's right for your client. You find the right trip package that's right for your client. Ryan is he's giving you hints here. He knows what the hot ones are. He knows the Italy. He knows the Ireland are the hot ones. But, find your clients that fit into that, whether they're the classic, whether they're exploration, whether they're faith, whether they're spotlight ones. Find your clients that really fit into that mold. Or, if you are consumers out there that you're watching this and you say, oh, hey, I want to do a faith-based travel. And now you know that Collette handles that faith-based travel, so reach out to your travel advisor. These are the things that we want to make sure that people out there know that Collette handles for you.
Absolutely.
What do you think going forward into 2025, 2026, where do you see kind of the future of travel going? Where do you see the future of Collette going?
The future of travel, I think, is it's grown by leaps and bounds.
Right.
I mean, I have friends and mutual acquaintances that work at cruise lines, that work at all-inclusives at hotels, and obviously in tour. People are more comfortable, I think, now, and they're motivated to get out and notch off those bucket list items. Right. So I think that travel is an industry that's going, and with the assistance of various tech, it's going to make it all that much easier. And I think quite frankly, there was a scare years ago that tech's going to replace travel advisors. Some people thought. I don't. People still want someone that is an expert in this industry to help them, and I think that's a huge advantage. As far as where Collette's going, I'm kind of excited you asked. So I mentioned Dan a little bit earlier. Yeah. He's just handed over the reins of Collette to his daughter. That's right. Jacqueline Leibel-Cote. Started last fall as our CEO, first female CEO of Collette. She is a trailblazer as far as the travel industry, and where she's got just tons of ideas, a great team around her. And we're coming up with new and exciting ways to not only travel, but destinations. She came up through the ranks at Collette.
That's nice. Yeah.
And product was her background, and you can tell because our product team is designing some new and exciting products. So I do think we're going to see, I mentioned earlier, I do think we're going to see an increase in smaller groups. I think right now it's 16 to 24. I think we'll get more of those. Mm-hmm. But I also think that number is going to decrease as well.
Interesting.
I think I do see it getting down. I don't know. We're never going to get to hey, go on a Collette tour of just you and one other person. But I could see it getting to 8 to 12 in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I like that it's going in her hands. I like that she's kind of focusing on the destinations. Very important, and the future looks fantastic with Collette, and we're big fans here. And Ryan, I appreciate you coming to our Studio A here in Roswell, Georgia, and talking with us. That's huge. And for everybody out there watching, make sure you look into Collette. Make sure you research Collette. Make sure you find out all the destinations that fit into your favorite places that you want to go, the bucket list places that you want to try. Collette has those options for you. You book out, it's guaranteed. You don't have to worry about stuff. If you're an advisor, try the groups. There's really no risk for you. Try it out. Find those clients out there that want to go on that group. But thank you, Ryan, for talking with us today. And
yes, sir.
Everybody here at World Via, we thank you, and we'll see you all